I'm Dennis Anderson along with Julie Zenner, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
U.S. Congressman Rick Nolan joins us to talk about a momentous week in Washington. Topics include this week's budget agreement and the rise of Wisconsin Republican Paul Ryan to the Speaker's chair.
Lincoln Park businesses are banding together to showcase the surging craft manufacturing culture in that neighborhood.
And AAR reaches a milestone at its Duluth airplane maintenance facility and says the sky is the limit for future growth.
These stories and a lot more are coming up on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thank you very much for watching. A special honor today, Julie, for the late Congressman Jim Oberstar.
That is true, and we'll be talking about that in just a moment.
Yep, our very first guest, in fact, was in attendance at today's ceremony.
All right, thank you. He was. Thanks, Denny. As chairman of the powerful House Transportation Committee, 8th District Congressman Jim Oberstar was a major force behind funding for Duluth's new airport terminal, so it was fitting that the Duluth terminal was named in honor of the late congressman today. Our first guest now holds the same seat in Congress. Democratic Representative Rick Nolan of Minnesota's 8th District joins us tonight. And Congressman, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here.
Your thoughts on the tribute today up at the airport?
Well, it was a wonderful tribute. We also, today, earlier in the day, renamed the Chisholm Post Office after Jim Oberstar. And later this year, we're going to dedicate 35E to Jim Oberstar. And it was so fitting that we, the community saw fit to name the airport after Jim. Jim had a vision, and he understood the importance of infrastructure and the important role that that plays in creating jobs and building economies. And in Washington, he was known as Mr. Transportation, Mr. Aviation. And, you know, there's an old saying, you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. Mm-hmm. And when people fly into this airport from around the world, that's an important statement. They say, wow, you know, these people know how to do things right. This is a nice airport. Mm-hmm. I can raise a family here. I can come to work here. I can do business here. And it's an integral part of the Duluth becoming kind of an aviation mecca. A real powerfully growing business and industry that's creating hundreds, in fact, thousands of good jobs here in the Duluth area.
And some new money for the infrastructure up at the airport.
Yes, you know, Jim got $78 million for that airport, and then the state and the city and others came up with some additional funds. But we're working now. We've got a commitment for $20 million to improve the runways. And there's other things. I mean, your infrastructure is so integral to the way a community is perceived, the way an economy can grow or not grow. And you just have to invest in it. And it's one of the big problems. We're going to be bringing up the transportation bill next week. We had a busy couple weeks, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that. But it's no secret. Bridges are falling down, and trains are coming off the rail, and we got a lot of work to do on transportation. But Jim Oberstar was probably one of the most prominent people in every phase of transportation in the last century, and he is unbelievably well regarded, not just here, but throughout the country. It's good to see the community recognize his importance.
A lot to talk about tonight. A bipartisan budget agreement has been reached this past week, but there's $80 billion in new spending. Where does that money come from?
Well, you know, the budget agreement is a layout of parameters. And now we've got to go through the appropriation process. And a part of that deal is that you have to find pay-fors for that $80 billion, meaning you're going to have to cut money someplace and or come up with additional revenue. But we still have to decide within that framework how the various monies are going to be allocated and how they're going to be paid for.
Which brings up the question, we watched the political candidates running for presidency on the Democratic side, and you hear a lot of, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you this, we're going to take away student loans, more free medicine. Where does that money come from?
Well, that is the question. And I noticed they were all coming out against the budget deal. Well, the fact is it was a bipartisan agreement among Republicans and Democrats, and it does a number of things. It protects seniors from serious premium increases in Medicare. It protects people to having 20% cut in their disability payments, but it was accompanied with some very good disability reform measures that have to be taken.
But in reality, can we have a lot of giveaways?
No, you can't. You got to pay for everything. You got to pay for everything, which is why I tell you, I can't tell you how strongly I feel about the need for us to stop these so-called wars of choice in the Middle East. We spent $3 trillion in the war in Iraq alone. For $1 trillion, you could have graduated every kid in America from vocational and college school debt-free. For another $1 trillion of that, we could have rebuilt the infrastructure in America. For another $1 trillion of that, we could have given everybody a $1 trillion tax break. So whether it's in your life or in your business or in your government, you have to establish priorities. You have to make choices. And those choices have serious consequences. So yeah, those are tough decisions that have to be made, and I'm prepared to make them.
Congressman, what happens to the debt at the end of the day? Because the next president is going to be inheriting a debt of $20 trillion. And I watched the debt clock today click around, and $1 million in debt adds up every minute and a half. Mm-hmm. At some point, is somebody going to have to pay for that?
Of course somebody's going to have to pay for it. It all has to be paid for. Which is, again, not to be repetitious, but why, I don't have a problem spending money on educating our children. I don't have a problem spending money on building our infrastructure. I don't have a problem of making sure that older citizens have Social Security and Medicare. But it has to be paid for some way. And these wars of choice, even if you think they're a good idea, Julie, even if you think they're a good idea, from our personal life and our business life, there are a lot of things we'd like to do and we just can't do. You got Iraq, you got Afghanistan, you've got a half a dozen other nations. Well, there's 30, 40 other nations we could be involved in nation building. We can't afford to do that. We got to have a good, strong national defense. But that doesn't mean you can be dropping trillions and trillions of dollars into every country that you want to somehow shape and make look like us. It just doesn't work, Julie.
I just read where the U.S. tax code is 73,000 pages thick. Can anybody really say we don't need tax reform?
Yeah, the tax accountants, they love it. It needs to be simplified and it needs to be reformed. I saw a study here in Minnesota where the average person making $30,000 to $50,000 a year pays 33% in taxes. It's income, sales, gas, whatever. People making $1 million or more are only paying 13%. Well, that's not fair. That's not fair. So we got a lot of reform. The rich should be paying the same percentages as working men and women.
But will working men and women's taxes go down if the rich pay more?
Yeah, if nothing else, they'll feel better about it. If you made $50,000 and at the end of the year you only got $35,000 to live on, and a guy down the road made $1 million and he's only got $870,000 to live on for the remainder of the year. Yeah, if nothing else, you feel better about it. But really, you solve this problem by making the tax system more fair, so everybody feels good about it and feels everybody's paying, a similar fair share, and by revising your priorities, where and how you spend your money. And that's a big issue.
Mm-hmm. Congressman, of course, the other big news this week was Representative Paul Ryan, the new Speaker of the House from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Somebody you can work with?
Yeah, Paul's different. I like John Boehner as a person, but he was rather imperial. He'd come through with 5 guys surrounding him. He'd say, "Hello, Rick," and keep on going. Where Paul Ryan will come over and say, "Guys, I know we're kicking the can down the road on this transportation business. If you guys can go along with me just one more time, I promise you we'll let the Transportation Committee write a bill." You promise, Paul? I promise I'll do everything I can. Paul's kind of a ground-up sort of guy, and I think that'll do much better. Boehner did give him a lovely gift with this budget compromise deal, because he won't have to deal with raising the debt ceiling, he won't have to deal with the budget agreement, he won't have to deal with the prospect of having to shut the government down. So I think Paul's going to have a little easier slog at it, but Paul's a real ground-up kind of guy, and I think that'll work much better.
Your competitor, Stuart Mills, what's your game plan?
My game plan? You know, I work about 12, 15 hours a day, and I every day I'm meeting with agencies in Washington to get things done. I'm a good legislator. My goodness, I checked the record to see what my voting record was, and they had a category in there on effectiveness. Then guess who's the number one member of the Minnesota delegation? 3 among all 190 Democrats, 9 among all the members of Congress in legislation passed. It's a very simple formula. Bills you introduce, passed by the Congress, signed by the President. So I'm a get things done kind of guy, and people appreciate it. I'm just going to keep doing that.
All right. Well, Congressman, thank you so much for coming in and visiting with us tonight. Now, get back to work.
All right. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
And by the way, it's my wife's birthday. So
Happy birthday.
Talk about hard worker. You know,
Take her
here
out-
she's in the studio with us.
Take her out to the Duluth Grill in Duluth.
Oh, I love the Duluth Grill. That's the best place in town to eat.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
From hard spaghetti-like strands to neatly packaged finished products, the new pasta plant is a state-of-the-art operation. Machines and kettles and new and old employees alike kick out nearly 100 Michelina's brand pasta and sauce entrees every minute.
We're running 2 shifts now, and the 2 shifts are producing good product, and we're producing almost what our expectations are, so we're really on a roll here.
There are essentially 3 processes here, making one of 8 different kinds of sauce, cooking and cooling the pasta, then combining the 2. If the market for pasta holds up, the company plans to expand its operations to 4 production lines and employ up to 500 more employees like Davidson within 5 years. Palucci has already begun the process of selling his business on the stock market to help others get in on the potential profits.
I also want some of our people, our key people, to have a piece of the action. And that is in the franchise division as well as here. But I want it to remain here.
For Evening Edition with photographer Dave Stokes, John Gagnon, KDLH News.
Duluth's Lincoln Park neighborhood is experiencing a craft business renaissance. Manufacturers, brewers, bakers, and restaurant owners are seeing growth and opportunities for the future. Now, to show off what's happening in the neighborhood, several merchants are banding together in a special pop-up store the next 5 Saturdays. And here to tell us more about the pop-up and the Lincoln Park story is Tom Hanson, owner of the Duluth Grill restaurant, and Chris Benson is the owner of Frost River Trading Company, which makes and sells soft goods in Lincoln Park. Thank you both for being here. Chris, what in the world is a pop-up store?
Well, it's kind of an opportunity to not have a full investment in a retail store that's going to be there long-term with a lease and that sort of thing, but just an opportunity to get together and showcase our wares, I guess you'd say.
For a day, a week? How will that work?
This particular one is actually set up, it's going to be 5 consecutive Saturdays from 11 to 5. And the participating businesses are all going to be there with bread to beer, not sampling necessarily there,
Sure.
but lots of different folks are going to be there to just talk about the craft nature of what's going on there.
And can you tell us where it'll be?
1910 West Superior Street, kind of in the old Minnesota Surplus building.
Yep.
is the building that we occupy, and right off of Superior Street in the Lincoln Park area.
Tom, how did this whole idea come together?
Well, you know, it was initiated by LISC, and they had wanted businesses to participate. And for us, we have a business in Lincoln Park, so we're doing a pop-up in support of it. And, you know, my feeling on Lincoln Park, we've been there almost 15 years. There's some dynamic businesses in Lincoln Park, but this is really just adding to the culture. And I think the enthusiasm is coming from the residents, the business owners, and the potential that you see that we're not tearing down buildings, we're not, you know, renovating and gutting the whole neighborhood. We're kind of re-engineering the buildings that are already there. And it's the typical opportunity for entry-level businesses to come into the neighborhood.
For decades, that part of town was always known as Duluth's friendly West End. It had kind of a brand. Are you working at rebranding Lincoln Park?
I think the biggest thing we're trying to do is focus on the craft nature. The fact that, particularly in our shop, all of our products are made right there in the building. You can actually see people cutting leather and making bags. And it's the same type of thing with the brewery that's behind us. It's an amazing craft brewery that has been built there, and you can see where they're making the stuff, and it's going all over the region. So,
you know, and the plug, Aerostitch has been there 33 years. And people are just getting to know their presence because they're participating. You know, I think having 2 breweries in Lincoln Park is something that we want to really take pride in. You know, there's 2 craft breweries. Lake Superior Brewing Company has been in business for 20 years. So, I mean, there's so much going on. And the funny thing is spending time there, I get old timers coming by starting to point out which store was here. It was Penny's, it was a grocery store, a hardware store. And so, I mean, that neighborhood may never come back, but the people that are coming there, it's kind of this resurgence of new energy, new life, and a lot of young people. I'm kind of getting to be one
the old timers.
I keep talking about young people like as if I'm part of it. And I look in the screen here, and I realize that the gray hairs are given away.
Now, several months ago, there was a consultant who came to town as part of a gearing up for a vibrant Lincoln Park event. And she, I know, toured both of the businesses that you guys own and some others, and provided some insights. Any recommendations or things that came out of that experience that kind of got people going and made you want to, you know, look for this kind of business or do that sort of thing in the neighborhood?
You know, what I saw from that is she deals with 100-year-old buildings in cities all across the country. And so she isn't looking at anything as it is now. She's seeing the 100-year-old buildings in Seattle and Portland and all over that someone has taken it and renovated it. And so the character you could never build in today's building market. But bringing that back to a neighborhood, to a building, it's attracting people. In the industrial aspect, artists feel that the plein air, if I'm correct in how they describe it, of the industry and the lake and the freeway is great for art creativity. And so, I mean, they see that kind of hardcore industrial form as opportunity where, you know, in looking at these old buildings, it's been done in many cities. Northeast Minneapolis is a great example of a really booming district that was written off 10, 20 years ago.
Is there a Lincoln Park Business Association? How do you get your word out to other business owners in that region?
Well, Lincoln Park Business Group is going through somewhat of a revitalization as well, and our focus, there's a number of us that have been on that board and are returning to the board, and it's been a great board, but now there's a lot to deal with. There's something to actually mold and work with by having all this interest in the area. And so there's a lot of events that are historical and very much a tradition for the Lincoln Park Business Group in the neighborhood. Yet there's a new piece, an added layer of responsibility now. So the Lincoln Park Business Group is taking on new roles, and one of them is a committee called Advancing Lincoln Park.
Chris, what made you decide to locate in Lincoln Park in the first place?
Well, I think it really came down to the fact that the building really suited our needs. We had the ability to be able to cross-mix and manufacture in the building and then open up that experience to people on a retail sense on Superior Street. So the address is very identifiable. If people want to be able to find the place, the parking is friendly there. And it just is it's a neat part of town. Plenty of people have pointed out that it's the center of Duluth. If you take the map and lay it out, it's very convenient right off of the freeways. And quite honestly, it was affordable as well. And to be able to breathe life back into that building, when I worked with the Minnesota Surplus people to look into buying it, they were really excited to hear that there were going to be jobs there and customers coming in and all that sort of thing. And it's been a lot of fun having that happen. So,
To your knowledge, have business pop-ups been tried elsewhere? And if so, what kind of success have they had?
we have another one that's actually going on down in the cities this weekend.
Oh.
That's a pop-up event called Northern Grade. And we're part of it along with many other made in U.S. brands. Duluth Pack is going down to it. Faribault Woolen Mills is actually a mill. And really what it's about is, I think it's kind of a made in U.S. The fact that the things are being made here, and there are consumers that realize the value of that and want to support that. And just because it's made in U.S. doesn't necessarily mean that we can all open up a retail spot inside of a local strip mall or whatever. So the social media aspect, to be able to get the word of mouth out very quickly on these pop-up type events, have made them really, really effective.
Not all of the participants are currently located in Lincoln Park. A few are businesses that you'd like to entice there, I understand. Is that
There's a
one
lot
of
of
the
work
goals?
going on, yeah, a lot of courting going on. And it's some dynamic people. Duluth Coffee Company is one. We have a shoemaker. I don't know a lot about her business. I just got to hear about it. This young lady, and I apologize for not having her name right here, but she actually makes shoes and teaches shoemaking classes. And she's one of very few people in the country that can do this.
Huh.
And so she's coming there to introduce her craft. And we have people that are bringing in 3 or 4 artists will be in the location. And those are aspiring business people that want to take a chance on bringing their product and making that leap of faith into business.
And the hours again for people who want to show up?
11 to 5.
11 to 5.
On Saturday, for the next 5 Saturdays, running up to Small Business Saturday, which is a tremendous opportunity after Black Friday for people to get out and support your local shops and local businesses, and the pop-ups will all be there too.
You've got your work ahead of you.
And that's right next to Frost River.
Right next to Frost River. Yeah.
All right.
All right, Chris, Tom, thank you both very kindly.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
Thank you.
Growth in the aviation industry is bolstering the regional economy, a fact driven home by an event at AAR's Maintenance and Repair Station in Duluth Thursday. AAR delivered its 200th aircraft to customer Air Canada at a ceremony in the Mammoth Hangar on the north side of the Duluth Airport. We talked with AAR's Mark Ketterer about the transformation at the former Northwest Airlines facility.
3 years ago when we started, the facility had been empty for 10 years. And it was basically just a shell. I mean, there was nothing in here. And we came in and we replaced all the lights, and we bought stands and equipment and lifts and all these things, from many of our local vendors here in the Duluth area. So it's been great for them. But it's also, we've managed now to employ 385 full-time employees. AAR is an MRO, which is a maintenance, repair, and overhaul facility. So we can do everything from minor modifications to major overhauls like you see going on in here today. Airplanes in Air Canada's fleet undergo a block check, they call it, which is about a 14-day check, or they undergo heavy checks, which is about a 35 to 38-day check. With 3 airplanes in here, we generate about 55,000 man-hours a month in labor. When we get a heavy check in here, we'll typically drop the engines down. We'll inspect all the engine attach points, the pylon areas. We'll do a lot of work on the engine itself. We take the landing gear out from under the airplane, put new landing gear in, or we do some inspections on them. And then the interior of the airplane is completely stripped. I mean, everything comes out, all the floorboards come up, It's all inspected, it's repaired, it's repainted, it's refurbished, and it's all put back together in just 35 to 38 days. AAR is just a huge corporation out there, and for us to have a part of that here in Duluth, it's pretty special. And our goal is, naturally, as you see this hangar's full, there's a day where we want to put another one next door and bring in another fleet for Air Canada or some other customer. But in 2017, Air Canada starts taking delivery of the 737 fleet. And by 2018, 2019, they'll need to be coming in and having their first checks done on them. So we'd like to have another facility next door to do that. That's our big goal.
According to the Department of Employment and Economic Development, Northeast Minnesota employs more than 50% of the state's aviation, maintenance, and manufacturing workers.
Time now for more of the week's economic news from Business North. Chippewa Valley Bank has entered into an agreement to purchase the State Bank of Drummond and its offices in Drummond, Cable, and Barnes. With the purchase, Chippewa Valley Bank will have 16 offices, including one in Superior, and nearly $350 million in assets in northwestern Wisconsin. The acquisition allows the bank to strengthen its regional position, according to the bank's chief executive. The purchase needs shareholder and regulatory approval and is expected to close next April.
Cliffs Natural Resources executives revealed good news Thursday about the company's production of direct reduced iron at North Shore Mining in Silver Bay. Cliffs has completed production of its first industrial-sized trial round of 60,000 tons of direct reduced iron grade pellets. Those pellets were developed with the input of the buyer, which will conduct a test at its plant during the first quarter of 2016. Unlike taconite pellets, DRI pellets can be used in electric arc furnaces, which are becoming more popular as expensive blast furnaces are retired.
In a first for Great Lakes ships, the transportation company FedNav announced it has equipped its newest vessel, the Federal Biscay, with a ballast water treatment system. The system will help prevent invasive species from being introduced into the Great Lakes from ballast water obtained while visiting overseas ports. The Federal Biscay will ship general cargo such as grain and other commodities to and from the Midwest and world markets. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
Well, it's been a packed show, but there's still time to call if you have a comment. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message or send us an email to almanacnorth@wdsc.org. Now, for updates on your favorite programs, news from the station, and more, visit the WDSC website where you will find a host of useful information. And Julie, we encourage all the little ghosts and goblins to stay safe while trick-or-treating on Halloween.
That's right, and drivers, look out for them.
Yep, I agree.
Make it a safe night.
You bet. So, for Julie and the crew here at Almanac North, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a great weekend. Good night, everybody, and be kind.